Why are Democrats creating racial division? Another crazy leftist goes on a rampage, and our special guest, AJ Rice. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wash. Stop letting Democrats perpetuate racism and violence in America. I thought we were done with this. I thought black and white people respected each other and, generally speaking, had no deep-seated racism for each other. I was right, but Democrats decided that they needed that racism for political purposes, so they drummed it up again. They turned every incident that they could into a racial argument. Oppression and equity were the two main tools used to convince black people that they're still being discriminated against, and whites are all evil oppressors. Well, not the left-wing whites, of course. For the most part, white Americans didn't mind. But what's happened is white people are now being demonized, and it's all because Democrats didn't get the race war that they wanted from simply giving preferential treatment to blacks. So they needed more to fuel the flames. They needed to create more hatred toward white people, and they need white people to finally say enough is enough. So what happens when you demonize a group of people who have done nothing wrong? Well, the answer is those people start to become angry. Democrats have fueled those flames, and as well by creating fake racial hate crimes. The idea here with things like the George Floyd incident, the Jussie Smollett racism hoax, and many other instances was to fabricate racism where it didn't exist. Now, they hope that by creating the initial battles, it will ultimately lead to the large and very destructive race war that they want. They want black people to hate white people and accuse them of being racist, and they want white people to reach the boiling point and finally fight back. Now, the racial indifferences that we have that have been fabricated and manipulated by Democrats in America should not make you angry at another race. Recognizing the heinous behavior of these left-wingers should cause blacks and whites to unite against the race hustlers. Now, black people are not the enemy of whites, and white people are not the enemy of blacks, despite the left-wing propaganda. This is all manufactured hatred perpetrated by congressional Democrats and global elites. It's time we start seeing it for what it really is and recognize who the real bad guys are. So we're going to talk about this and many other things with, he's the author of the White Privilege album and the Woking Dead, former producer for Laura Ingraham at Fox News, known as America's publicist, and Super Bowl champion, AJ Rice.
That's right, brother.
That's right. How was that intro?
Great to be here. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Fantastic. Great to be here.
Well, AJ, I'm glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation because you're one guy who really can get into the nuts and bolts of these conversations. And after reading your White Privilege album book, I was like, man, he really gets it. Well,
sure. I mean, look. I mean, just the subtitle of the book, bringing racial harmony to very fine people on both sides. Now, I know the very fine people are watching today, so I want to give a big shout out to them. They're always tuning in here. But it wasn't just Jussie Smollett. It wasn't just George Floyd. You know, really, since the OG came down the golden escalator, the foundational lie, the superstructure that all this nonsense sits on, sort of the 7-level parking deck underneath of the building that the left and the media and academia have built, was the Charlottesville hoax, the very fine people hoax. This was the original sin, the initial con that all of the Trump is racist, ultra MAGA, they're all white supremacists. It's all been built on that, which is why I'm trolling the left with the subtitle. And I had no idea that the very fine people would make as many appearances as they did in last year's election. Came out of Obama's mouth, came out of Michelle's mouth, came out of Kamala's mouth, came out of Tim Walz's mouth. I mean, it came out of Biden's mouth all the time. So Schumer brings it up when he's on C-SPAN. So you've had plenty of these things to try to sort of flood the zone to get people at each other's throats, because The Democrats have been worried for 100 years that African Americans in particular will leave the intellectual plantation that they've put them on, the mental plantation. Democrats had them on real plantations in the South before the Civil War. Now they've got them on esoteric ones, mentally. And many are leaving. And we can get into that. If you look at some of the numbers from the 2024 election. I will say this, if you're looking for a litmus test, one that's happened recently, and I am here broadcasting live from the swamp, the crime-free swamp. I guess I'm wondering, where are all the African Americans that are pissed off in the streets that the National Guard has kept the Capitol almost crime-free, almost murder-free for 2 weeks? Yeah. Where are they? Where are they? I will tell you where they are, and I've seen many videos of this. They're on TikTok with their bling, filming themselves, walking up the street going, man, I love this MAGA. I can walk up the street, I can wear my watches, I can wear my jewelry, and not get jumped by the thugs. So, if you know, the black mayor's not complaining. The black chief of police isn't complaining. And the citizens. I mean, look, Washington, D.C. has only got about 540,000 people. And most of them are African Americans, you know, and then you got some liberal white elites that live there. There's not many Republicans that are in there, unless they have to be to work on Capitol Hill. Most of them, however, live in Arlington and Alexandria in Virginia. And I was one of them once upon a time. So I will tell you, it's mostly, I mean, look, Dave Chappelle's from Washington, D.C., right? There's very few white people from Washington, D.C., except for your sort of white privilege album liberals, you know, limousine liberals. The ones that want to make sure they feed this nonsense perpetually to African Americans, to Muslims, to Hispanics that have come here. I mean, this is the plan. So if you are looking for a litmus test on whether or not, you know, black people are pissed off with Trump policies, look no further. At least now, he's been here 6-7 months. Look no further than the Washington, D.C. experiment that's going on now.
Well, let's jump to the chase on this, because this is the ultimate question. You know, Morgan Freeman said racism would basically, he said racism would go away if we just stopped talking about it. But the Democrats don't want to stop talking about it. You've already made that clear, and I think it's pretty obvious. The question is why. So what are they gaining? What will they ultimately gain? Are they looking for a big race war?
Left-wing whites can't allow it to end. They can't. If you look at the protests that have been happening in D.C., and it looked like the protest outside of Stephen Colbert's Late Show when there was like 17 people there. They're all goofy white people. Goofy white people are protesting the National Guard in D.C. I'm talking about stinky, hairy, washed-up hippies, patchouli oil, Depends wearing white people. These were the same people in Virginia protesting the Tesla dealerships. Yeah. These are the same washed-up hippie, you know, Bernie Sanders, Humanities Department, stinky, you know, they've got PhDs in underwater lesbian basket weaving. That's who they are. That's who they are.
So why, though, AJ? The question is why.
You know that's who it is. Power. So, look, in the 2024 election, you had African Americans, males mostly, although Trump did better with black females too. Whether it was in Atlanta or Philly or Detroit, Clark County, Maricopa County, you know, Glendale out there, where the brothers are in Arizona, they all moved towards Trump. Now, whether they'll move to the Republicans writ large remains to be seen. I mean, they're there, you know, as long as you don't unzip your skin suit and let Mitt Romney jump out, they're there for you. African Americans move towards Trump. Jewish voters that see all their friends being hunted on Columbia's campus, They have moved. Finally. I was telling, Jewish voters, I never understood they were continue to vote for their own beheading.
Yeah.
They moved towards Trump. Suburbs of Philadelphia, Henderson, Nevada. I can go on and on.
Well,
Trump was able to get Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan to vote for him. How did he do that?
Yeah.
How the hell did the great fascist, the great Hitler,
yeah,
how did he get the Jews in the suburbs of Philadelphia and the Muslims in the suburbs of Detroit both vote for him? And may I add one other thing? There were two blue walls that came down in the last election. One is the Rust Belt. The other one runs along the sort of Texas-Mexican border, right? These are counties that were blue. They've now flipped to red. These are Hispanic, 98% Hispanic counties. See, the Democrats, the goofy whites I was just describing, for years have been worried that African Americans would escape their capture, elite capture. They would escape it, and they need a replacement. They need a replacement. And that might have been their fatal flaw, because they chose as their replacement billions of people that are Catholic, that never get divorced and never have abortions. And if you look at a map of California, of all places, county by county, from 2020 to 2024, we're talking 90, 85%, almost 100% Hispanic counties. You look at the difference between Biden versus Kamala. Trump gained like 14 counties that are all Hispanic, just like the Texas-Mexican border in California. So it's only a matter of time. The goofy white libs, Gavin, and the rest of them, the clock is ticking on California before it becomes a Republican Hispanic state. It will happen. I mean, do you see a lot of these voters, these Hispanics that all voted for Trump because they like his machismo? No, I'm joking. They all voted for him. I mean, there's an old adage that everyone wants to be the last to arrive, right? But the reality is that they don't like wokeism. They are family values oriented. It's only a matter of time before California. So everybody's worried about Texas flipping blue. They should be worried about California flipping red.
You know what's really
we're
interesting?
We're only a couple cycles away from that. And I've been tracking those numbers. It's unbelievable to see. But so Trump made the Republican Party more working class and more blue collar.
Yeah.
And the goofy white, humanities department, Karens in the streets, they're losing their mind over it.
And at the same time, they should be realizing this, but at the same time, the goofy white libs are trying to change Latino and Latina to Latinx. They're trying to literally change their identity. And they think that they're still going to vote Democrat. Don't they see what I don't understand it.
Look, there's not one Latin person you'll ever meet. Look, I'm Catholic. So I'm in the pews with, the hermanos. And none of them call themselves this. They don't use the term BIPOC either. So these are terms that academia, goofy humanities department, the faculty lounge fascistas invented to label non-white people.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. The arrogance is amazing.
Well, look, it's funny. And as these different groups slowly start to vote Republican, they all immediately become white people. Because the left talks about these groups as something called, and I write about this in the book, it's one of my favorite terms, white adjacent. White adjacent, meaning like standing next to you, Dan. Okay, so some guy, some Indian PhD standing next to Dan, if that Indian PhD or heart surgeon or works at the makeup counter at Macy's, whatever the hell it is, if they stand next to Dan and they vote Republican, they are white adjacent, meaning Dan's whiteness. And Dan's way whiter than me, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm from Philadelphia. So Dan's whiteness jumps off of him. It jumps off of him. Casper the Friendly Ghost just jumps off of him, and it lands on this Indian doctor because they vote Republican. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize this. The Italians weren't white till recently. They weren't white till recently. Early 20th century. They had all kinds of names for that, right? So, and look, and people forget the biggest mass lynching of a group of people in American history were of Italians in Louisiana, 1893, something like that. That's why Columbus Day actually was created, because the Italian immigrants here were so pissed that all these goofy, crackers in Louisiana hung a bunch of Italians. So as these groups move towards the Republican Party, they're getting called white. The New Yorker ran a piece, I talk about it in the book, the rise of the white supremacist Hispanic. Whatever the hell that is. So look,
I don't know what that makes no sense to me. Hey, AJ, let me get to one of our sponsors real quick.
Go ahead.
You want to know who's fighting for your gun rights? Gun Owners of America. GOA is the no compromise gun rights group, so I urge you to become a member at gunowners.org. Well, what have they done? Well, GOA secured a preliminary injunction against the ATF pistol brace rule. GOA members submitted a record 85,000 plus comments opposing the ATF's universal registration check rule. They helped enact permitless carry in Nebraska and Florida, and GOA secured victories in California, Illinois, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Plus, they won 2 legal victories against the ATF's zero-tolerance policy. And GOA fought to overturn Joe Biden's ban on funding hunter education, shooting sports, and archery in schools. So with the constant attacks on our Second Amendment, we often ask ourselves, well, what can I do about it? Well, this is what you can do. You can become a member at gunowners.org and help us save the Second Amendment. All right, so we're here with AJ Rice, and the conversation is always entertaining and a bit spicy. And that's why I love talking to you, AJ. So you were talking about how Democrats are trying to manipulate Hispanics, and I'm wondering how they don't see what they're doing as being completely destructive to the Democratic Party.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. The Democrat Party has been denying its identity crisis for some time. They have tried to piece together these different grievance groups, like a Tower of Babel, and get them all to not only get along, because obviously they're, the traditional pro-Israel Jewish base isn't really down with the hunting Jewish kids down on Columbia's campus. They're not really down with playing footsie with Hamas. They're not really down with I heart the mullahs in Iran. They're not really down with that. They're not down with Gaza. They're not down with any of it. So, and that's why you saw some of these goofy Jewish comedians. Some of them flipped, like Michael Rappaport. He's had it. But Sarah Silverman and Chuck Schumer's chubby niece, Amy Schumer, Trainwreck, they were shocked to find out that all their socialist friends that voted for Bernie also hate Jews. Now, as you know, totalitarians of a feather flock together. The most racist regime in history was able to get along with the Italians, which they didn't think were white, like I just said, Mussolini, and an Asian country called Japan, right? These were the Axis powers in World War II. Hitler could even get beyond his own racism to join forces with 2 nations that weren't white people. So the idea that you won't have different groups get together if the end goal is destruction of Western civilization, destruction of Israel, destruction of the United States, whatever it is, they will do that. So, on October 7th last year, there was some, there was horror spread through these people. But, I mean, I've known all along, especially with the Gen X professors pushing what they push in academia, that, the further we get away from the Holocaust, the more boomers retire. And I bet you didn't think you were going to get a defense of boomers here, but you are. Because the boomers were the children of the people that liberated the camps. Auschwitz, Dachau. I'm talking about the concentration camps.
So they were close to it. They were attached to it.
They were close to it. They remembered it. Their parents talked about it. So as you get further from the Holocaust and World War II, academia is able to make the Holocaust a theoretical event.
Right.
And it's also able to turn Israel into basically a colonial power where the whites of Europe felt bad for this group of people that I'm not sure what really happened to. And they went into the land of brown people and they stole all this land from the poor Phoenicians or the Philistines or the Palestinians, which were all the same thing, by the way, stole it from them and gave it to this group of Ashkenazis from Eastern Europe. And it's a colonial power. No different than, the Dutch West Indies. No different than, the Belgian Congo to them. So, and they stole this land from the rightful goat herding Bedouin. I'm trying to be nice here. So that's what, and that's how they see it. They see it as a colonial power. They see it as, Jewish Christopher Columbus. So it has to go. It has to go.
So
that's who's in control of academia now. And the millennials went through it, and now Gen Z is going through it. And the further you get from the boomers and from the World War II generation, you get the rise of anti-Semitism writ large.
Right. But even that, putting that aside, Jewish Democrats here in America can see the way. It's pretty clear to just about everybody that Democrats do not appreciate them. And yet some of them still vote Democrat. I mean, regardless of, I know what you're talking about. It makes perfect sense.
They're scared.
But
They're
regardless
scared of their own base.
Go ahead.
Their base is pro-Hamas. Their base is not pro-Israel. So that's why you got Chuck Schumer, not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
I mean, Chuck Schumer's a walking Hebrew stereotype. And, he's blowing kisses to Mamdani. He's blowing kisses to the mullahs. He's taking positions that are insane. And
the people just follow along. The voters just follow along. They'll go right off the cliff with them. It's amazing.
Well, not all of them. So this is what I was getting to, is that there's a change happening. There is. If you look at the numbers,
okay.
Jewish voters in New York State, Jewish voters in the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, they are moving towards the Republican Party. But a minute ago, I talked about how the Democrats, have an identity crisis. They don't know who their base is, and they're starting to find out. Let me walk you through that. I don't know if we have, when the next break is, but let me just say this real quick. The Democrats have not had a true primary, not a real one, not one that their voters believe was real.
Right.
Since 2008 with Barack Obama, taking on Hillary and John Edwards. Edwards kind of flamed out because he was stooping the videographer. And then you had Hillary and Barack. Bill was like, who is this Hussein in the membrane that showed up? He's talking to Ted Kennedy. He's saying stuff like, this guy should be getting us coffee, should be shining our shoes. Barack Obama, lo and behold, wins. He wins. And now he ran as an outsider, and he ran as a community organizing radical with all of his associations, going to barbecues with Farrakhan and so on. But he basically took it to the establishment, which were the Clintons. But the second he became president, they must have put that threat matrix down in front of him like they tried to do at Trump Tower, Clapper and Comey and the boys. And Trump said this, and Obama basically gulped and said, I'll do whatever you want. So once Obama became the nominee and then president, he became a company man.
Yeah.
And towed the deep state line and towed the party line. Now, in his heart of heart, he probably is still a radical. Michelle definitely is. But he picked an old Uncle Cracker running mate in Joe Biden to calm down, the Clintons of the world and the Ed Rendells of the world and the Bloombergs of the world.
Quell the rage.
Right. So then you have 2012, where, Obama easily dispatches Mitt Romney in the magical underwear. And that brings us to 2016, where you might think they had a real primary. But let me walk you through this. Bernie Sanders was gobbling up delegates.
Yeah, right.
He was winning. He was beating Hillary. And the Democrat Party got together, especially at the convention, with the help of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, old peanut butter mouth. She's got a wad of Jiffy or Peter Pan in her mouth when she talks. And we know this because Donna Brazile put this in her book. So either Donna Brazile's lying, right? or this happened. And Bernie actually recently on Andrew Schultz's podcast told Andrew that this did happen. The superdelegates got together. They made sure there was no floor fight at the convention, and Hillary was coronated. She's going to take on this reality star buffoon named Donald Trump. She's going to win handily, happily ever after. Right?
Yep.
That's not what happens. 4 years later, you got COVID. Bernie's coming again. He's coming again. Kamala's out of the race. She's out in 2019. She's on the trash heap. But you got, Mayor Pete on his bicycle. You got Klobuchar. You got Crazy Eyes Corey. You got Pocahontas. You got all these characters. And I don't know whether you remember, but, Mayor Pete wins Iowa. Him and Bernie were at the top of the heap there.
Yeah.
They go into New Hampshire. I don't know whether you remember this. No one knows who won New Hampshire in the Democrat primary. Still, right now. Do you remember, Dana Perino and all these people on the air going, what the hell just happened here? Yeah. What happened? So here's what happened. The powers, they blew the whistle, whether it was Obama, the Clintons, Bloomberg, whoever it was, they all got together and they told everyone to get the hell out of the race. So between New Hampshire and South Carolina, where Jim Clyburn comes in with the Congressional Black Caucus and endorses Biden, everyone gets out of the race. Mayor Pete's out, this one's out, that one's out, Klobuchar, they're all out. Biden's going to be the nominee. We got to stop Bernie again. Pocahontas eventually gets out. They park him in the basement. They plug him into the extension cord, and he's the nominee and supposedly wins, beats Trump. 4 years later, Biden goes out there on the debate stage, gets a haircut, gets his hair chopped off by Trump. They remove him. They put in this woman who's never won a primary. She spends $1.3 billion in 100 days and loses.
Yeah.
So the Democrats have not actually had an authentic primary in a long time.
Yeah, watching Kamala.
2008.
Watching Kamala come in was amazing because she was out of the primary, the presidential primary, before Iowa, if I remember correctly.
Sure, yeah, 2019, she was on the trash heap.
She had zero support.
Just like Biden was in 2008. So here's the thing, though. So you got
hold that thought for 1 second. Can you hold that thought?
Yeah, let's do it.
One of our sponsors real quick. And I think we're coming up on break, but I'll give you a chance for that thought. Hold on. This device, the Cali key, removes your AR from the definition of assault weapon. Did you know that when so-called assault weapon ban lists are created, they exclude manually operated bolt-action firearms? So just by dropping the Cali key into your direct impingement AR and place it your semi-automatic BCG, you'll have a bolt-action rifle that falls outside the definition of an assault weapon. You don't need to do anything else. So give the Cali key a look, because with it, you could retain all your rifle's features, avoid registration complications, revive your black rifle sales if you're an FFL, regain the ability to do private party transfers, legally transport across hostile jurisdictions, hunt with your AR in areas like Pennsylvania, enhance long-range precision and quiet or suppressed shooting. Cali Key has state-specific expert attorney opinions on its website and supports grassroots Second Amendment organizations with its sales. Cali Key's mission is to empower customers and claw back our civil liberties. So go to calikey.com, use the discount code LOADED. AJ, sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
Well, I mean, just imagine this universe where you've got the Democrat Party, and look, the base is, they've shown us who's in charge in the last 150 days here with Trump. But just to put a bow on why the Musks and the Naomi Wolfs and the, Joe Rogans and the Tulsi Gabbards have all jumped ship to the Republicans, and someone else here I'm going to mention. In the midst of all of that, where they haven't had a real primary since 2008, after Obama, they rigged for Hillary, they rigged for Biden, they rigged for Kamala. In all of that, in this last cycle, what else did they do? They filed lawsuits, and the DNC actively campaigned to make sure RFK Jr., running as a Democrat, would not only not debate Biden, but not get on the ballot. So you have this 6% of the Democrat Party, some Hollywood people, Woody Harrelson and so on. They were RFK Jr. people. And this is the reason he ran as an independent and eventually endorsed Trump, is because the behavior This is the oldest male heir of the most famous Democrat family in 100 years. And they actively kept him away from debating Biden, being on the ballot. Imagine in a parallel universe where Biden debates him long before he debates Trump. And RFK Jr. cleans his clock. Then what do? They knew. RFK Jr. would have maybe been the nominee for the Democrats. Yeah. They would have had to do something, in the multiverse of alternative realities that could have happened. So you wonder why RFK Jr. then, endorsed Trump. It's some of this nonsense that I'm talking about now. And guys like Fetterman know it, and guys like Bill Maher know it. Some sane people. There are some sane people out there. Seth Moulton and others, Tim Ryan, that, Stephen A. Smith. There are some lib Democrat type people that know what I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. But I mean, imagine that. And just full disclosure, RFK Jr. is our client, as is Tulsi Gabbard and Naomi Wolf. So I have worked with three of the biggest, most famous Democrats that left, that flipped. And it's more about, for them, like the old Reagan saying, I didn't leave the Democrat Party left me.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They keep moving.
The Democrats went off the rails. I mean, that was that's obvious. That's why a lot of these people, jumped ship. But AJ, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with AJ Rice.
The Cali Key removes your AR from the definition of an assault weapon. It lets you keep your rifle with all its features, avoid registration hassles, and transport in hostile jurisdictions. The Cali Key also lets you hunt in jurisdictions like Pennsylvania and enhances long-range precision shooting. Cali Key's expert legal opinions empower informed decisions, and sales help grassroots Second Amendment organizations. Cali Key is your tool to keep and equip your AR, empower yourself, and defend your civil rights.
Our founding fathers saw them coming over 200 years away. That's why they wrote the Second Amendment. Join us in the fight to preserve your gun rights and stop unconstitutional gun control. Gun Owners of America is the country's only no-compromise gun rights organization. Not only do we inform and educate, but we bring the fight to court and win. Your God-given right to keep and bear arms is our top priority. Become a member today and help us take back America. Join us at gunowners.org. We're back with AJ Rice, and there's so many things I wanted to talk to you about. Talk with you about, AJ. I don't think we're going to have the time to get through most of this stuff. There are two main topics I wanted to hit on today, and you brought us through quite a political spectrum, timeline, which was great. You have such a perspective on this stuff. I really appreciate that. But I guess my initial thought today was to try to understand more about why the political left is so indoctrinated, how they got so indoctrinated, and how they can't see reality when it comes to racial divide and stuff. So I want to show you this one thing. I'm sure you're aware of the David Webb interview, but it's almost like they can't help themselves. So this is CNN legal analyst Areva Martin. She accuses David Webb of white privileges, and she thought he was white, so therefore he must have had white privilege. It seems to be the lens that the leftists are constantly looking through. Let me show this real quick. There's an older clip. I'm sure, I don't know if people have seen it yet, but we'll refresh your memory. Can we play that clip?
An exchange that took place on the radio yesterday between host David Webb and legal analyst Areva Martin was pretty embarrassing for her.
That's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege and things that you have the privilege of doing that people of color don't have the privilege of.
How do I have the privilege of white privilege?
David, by virtue of being a white male, you have white privilege.
Areva, I hate to break it to you, but you should have been better prepped. I'm black.
AJ, this is just infuriating. It's an assumption.
All right. So David's
you remember
a buddy
that,
of mine.
Right?
Oh my God. So David's a buddy of mine, and I was on his show last fall, and we played this probably 3 or 4 times to each other. It is one of the all-time greats. It is one of the all-time greats, and it shows you in a microcosm how not only the talent that feeds the propaganda, the sort of the facsimile that's on CNN or on Sirius XM, wherever it is puppeteered. But as a former producer for Laura Ingraham, Monica Crowley, John Solomon, Buck Sexton, Chris Salcedo, I can go on and on and on. Mancow, Michael Savage, I've worked with them all. Tammy Bruce, I can go on and on. Ben Shapiro. I mean, the idea that this black African-American analyst could get on the air and not know that David Webb was black. So you have stupidity there. But you also have the collection of a preset, responses and prompts.
Yeah.
Preset, motives. That's what, look, other than that being hilarious, if you really want to sort of analyze how something like that happens on the air, that's what's going on in your public schools. That's what's going on in academia. That's that's what was going on really through all of the DEI nonsense and all the corporate boardrooms that's now slowly ending. So there's a few death rattles happening, like Cracker Barrel. They took away the cracker and the barrel, Dan. So put the cracker and the barrel back, okay?
Put it all back. We want it the way it was.
I don't know whether they noticed, but Cracker Barrel's filled with black people and Hispanics, all right? Take a trip into Cracker Barrel. It ain't just a bunch of hee-haw people that fell off the turnip truck, okay? It's for everybody. It's like the United Nations in there.
What exactly are hee-haw? What's the definition of...
It's more efficient than the United Nations. They should knock down the United Nations building there in Turtle Bay and put a Cracker Barrel up instead. Look, the point is that, that Webb thing is insane. But here's what's been happening. And this piggybacks on what we were just talking about. You've got very smart guys that have won elections, that have been behind the scenes and in front of the scenes on the Democrat Party, like Rahm Emanuel, like James Carville, okay? And they're leaving the tower, and they're going out, and they're meeting their voters. They're meeting the superstructure underneath of, just the paid corporate propagandists at CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times. They're going out and they're meeting them, and they're horrified. They're horrified because they're the people that would have made Bernie Sanders the nominee, right?
Yeah,
that's them. They're the people that made Mamdani probably the mayor, which will be the gift that keeps on giving. So over the last sort of 150 days, we could talk about what we've seen Trump do, but let's look at what the Democrats have shown us who they are. And look, when the Democrats show you who they are, believe them. They lifted up their skirt, and there's 73 genders under there, Dan. And what else is under there? What else is under there? Well, the assassination of healthcare executives in the streets, the turning around of planes filled with MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, a love of the IRS, right? A love of these the public sector unions, a love of sending women or men into Nancy Mace's bathroom, the burning of Tesla dealerships, Mamdani, and of course my girlfriend Jasmine Crockett. This is
how long have you two been dating, by the way?
We've been dating. Look, don't tell my wife, but we've been dating a while. She's mad. She's mad that she can't get those eyelashes in from China as easily, because of Trump's tariffs, right? She has to go buy them from Manny Mo and Jack instead. So, it's, she's got to go down to NTB or Pep Boys or somewhere to buy them. Look, the point is this. They are showing you who they are, and this is a perfect storm.
Yeah.
For the Republicans to pick up seats.
Oh,
in
absolutely,
the midterms.
absolutely.
Because and guys like Rahm, old Raccoon Face, and James Carville, they know.
James Carville, he's amazing. He was so anti-Trump, so crazy. He would come on social media and just act like a freaking lunatic, and then he hit a wall. And it was interesting to watch his transition. But go ahead.
Well, listen to Fetterman, listen to Bill Maher. These aren't right wingers. They're not sitting around,
right?
They're not sitting around listening to Mark Levin, right? But they realize how crazy this all looks. They look like an unhinged group of people, and if they're going to make Jasmine, my girlfriend, and AOC, and Mom Donnie, and Bernie Sanders, the leader of the youth movement, they're going to make them the face.
Yeah.
They're doomed, which is why, it's funny. Jasmine Crockett let the mask slip off. She was on some goofy, urban podcast or something, and she basically said, "I'm not going to tell you who told me this because you'll know who it is." But the Democrats are desperately searching for a clean-cut Southern white boy, to save them.
Yeah, they understand.
Enter maybe. What is it? The governor of Kentucky, Bashir.
Didn't Crockett lose her seat due to the Texas redistricting?
Oh, she might be. She might be losing that soon. Yeah.
Hey, listen. Let me get to another topic here, AJ. I'm telling you, we could go 2 hours if we wanted to, but I wanted to get your opinion on this latest Minnesota Christian school killing.
Sure.
And I'm going to use a quote from your book, The Woking Dead. You said in your book, shootings and other mayhem could easily be up another 358% by this time next year or sooner. It won't take long for criminals to seize their chance. They may not have a conscience, but they do have the predator's finely honed ability to sense the helplessness of their prospective victims. And I think what you're alluding to is the idea of gun-free zones, where the good guys and the good people are unarmed and helpless, and the bad guys pay no attention to these laws. So I wanted to get your comment on that and then talk more about the Minnesota church killing.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. Although, Trump and Trump-type governors have got some of these activists on their heels. Trump has had to endure, 2 impeachments and 3 indictments and 2 assassins on the field. He keeps ticking because he's the man of the moment. He is the man of the era. He's a Churchillian figure. He's not just a political figure. He's a cultural figure that will echo down 100 years from now. And that's why I tell my right-wing friends that don't like this and don't like that, and they don't like Pam Bondi today, and they don't like this one today and that one today. I said, look, just try to enjoy this. Enjoy it. You got 3.5 years left, because you're never going to see anything like this again.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to some of what you're talking about, the Democrats, like we talked about earlier, we talked about the very fine people. They have an innate ability to grab 1 or 2 white supremacists, 1 or 2 Klansmen that come out of a cornfield, and extrapolate across 73, 75 million voters. They're able to do that. It's easy for them. They're able to do that because a lot of them, and I don't want to bore the audience, are raised on different types of postmodern philosophy in the humanities departments, in the journalism schools, and so on. They're able to leap reality, not just the suppression of disbelief, but they're able to, it's just how they're able to concoct 73 genders out of thin air, right? They're able to do it. If they can emotionally feel it, they can get there philosophically, especially when a philosophy has no guardrails. So they're able to take the very fine people and paint all of us as fascist, ultra MAGA, so on and so forth. And it's been backfiring over and over and over again. Now, when it comes to some of these shooters, if you told me that over the last 6 or 7 years, every couple months, an Irish Catholic nun would go get a gun and shoot up a school, and it happened every, 5 months or so over the last 8 years, what do you think the government would do? When they want to find a through thread, they will find it, and when their philosophies don't allow them to find it, they won't find it.
Right.
You know, all the people that attacked us on September 11th, as far as they're concerned, were a bunch of Scandinavians. So they couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. But this is what enables them to find the very fine people, to surveil, apparently, according to the FBI, PTA meetings and parents that were mad about sending dudes into women's locker rooms. Which brings us to the Minneapolis shooter. You're aware of this because I previewed a little bit of what my third book will be about. It will be about the trans mafia and all the elements of the trans mafia. And one of the big elements is in this giant mass hysteria of mental illness, because that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that almost every one of these shooters recently, and I've seen all the lists kicking around online, and there's usually about 7 or 8 of
usually
them.
There's about 7 or 8 recent.
Most recent. 7 or 8 on all the lists. I'm telling you, my list has 30.
Well,
my list has 30. They're either non-binary or trans. Going back to the first Trump term, you can even go back a little further. There's even the Trump Pennsylvania shooter. Okay, something going on there. All right. So what I'm saying to you is we have a pattern. If you're a criminal profiler, if you're a detective, if you're Humphrey freaking Bogart looking for a pattern, if you're Sherlock freaking Holmes looking for a pattern, or Agatha Christie or whoever, it's there.
yeah.
It's screaming through the TV, and yet this week, no mention of it on CNN.
Well, here's the thing that I've noticed. Here's the thing that I've noticed about this, and I want to get your opinion on this. You know, we've not only normalized this transgender stuff, but the people on the left are celebrating it, which actually causes a lack or a limitation on these people getting psychological help, which I believe is what they need. So what you're doing is by normalizing it, you're actually perpetuating more of it from that perspective, from normalization and celebration, but also from the lack of the mental health facilities that they need, the mental health help. So they're purposely creating and cultivating this in our society. So the question is, why?
Well, I mean, I get into a little bit of that in the next book. It is similar to why they cultivate some of the other radical groups, whether it's La Raza or Black Lives Matter. They are the far left needs foot soldiers to implement their far left ideology. And, Michael Savage used to say that liberalism is a mental disorder. Well, the branches of the tree all are dysfunctional mental disorders too.
Yeah.
Most of these trans people are all in the same age bracket. One of the things that is going on because of political correctness and cancel culture is that shame has been removed from, the body politic, the social structure, the social fabric of society. Most of this abnormal behavior, most of these alternative lifestyles, most of these mental illnesses used to be shamed into submission.
Yeah.
But now we celebrate them. We celebrate them because the left thinks diversity is our strength. Multiculturalism is our strength. Well, I got news for you. We are not a multicultural country. We're a multi-ethnic country, but we've got one culture here. And it's Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian culture, also known as Western culture. Okay? The only place in the world you'll find a Second Amendment, and in most cases a First. It's the only place in the world you'll find the Magna Carta. The only place in the world you'll find an Abraham Lincoln and an Isaac Newton. Right? That's the only place. Yeah. And I'm sorry, not all cultures and not all civilizations are created equal, which is why some of them go bye-bye.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why Albert Einstein's not from Uganda, but apparently Mamdani is. So that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. That's the fight.
Yeah.
And it's not new.
AJ, let me get to one of our sponsors real quick, and then I got another question for you. LifeWave is a non-transdermal patch that allows your body to produce its own natural pharmacy through light energy. Now, the X39 patch tells your body to emit heat in the form of light, which reflects back into your body, elevating a certain copper peptide. Now, this peptide activates your stem cells, which are the only type that can move throughout your body to heal inflammation. LifeWave offers affordable membership and has a history of wellness that spans over 20 years. It's been around since 2004. To help organizations like SEAL Team 6 and the Olympic swim team stay awake and alert. Today, these non-addictive patches are used by thousands of athletes, military professionals. LifeWave is available in over 80 countries, giving millions the opportunity of maximum wellness. So for more information, testimonials, and patents and studies, go to naturalpatchlife.com. AJ, I wanted to bring this topic up because, we hear... We understand that there's a problem with the transgenders and the psychology behind what's going on there, which I don't know what's going on there, but there's something wrong there. We should be focused on it. However, the anti-gun lobby groups, the typical ones, Moms Demand Action, Every Town for Gun Safety, Giffords, all these groups, as soon as this killing, they couldn't wait to stand on the graves of those little Christian children and talk about so-called gun violence as usual, and not one bit of focus on the psychology behind the transgender ideology or the Democrat ideology. Nothing about that stuff. How can they be, are they, I know they're not blind, I know they see this stuff, but how can they consistently go and push this narrative when even on their own social media pages, they're getting 99.9% pushback? They don't even have any support. How are they doing this, and when are they going to see the light, if ever?
Well, and look, they're not able to find. They like I just said, they will find the vanishing point, the first domino philosophy if it fits their worldview. But look at all the explanations for September 11th they concocted.
Yeah.
Some of them was Israel, their relationship with Israel, right. Western oil, Western influence, colonialism. Churchill drew the map wrong because he was drinking too much Madeira. Whatever the hell it is, they had 1,000 reasons for why September 11th happened. We deserve it. Get whitey, whatever it is. But they didn't listen to what bin Laden was saying. They didn't look into what they were reading. They didn't study the Quran. They didn't study the Hadiths. They didn't study the difference between Sunni and Shia Islam. And it's just like Iran. Look, the poor Persians. These are gentle people that just want to go about their business, that run their entire society on Sharia law.
Yeah.
Even the Sunnis think the Shia, which run Iran, are insane.
Well, when they tell you that they want to kill you, don't you think that maybe you should at least consider that to be true?
You should listen. And look, they can't connect the dots on the trans stuff. They don't see the alienation. They don't see the mental illness. They don't see the fact that any websites, media outlets, TV shows, movies, and otherwise, some musicians weaponize these people and turn them into things. Bill Clinton was able to blame the Oklahoma City bombing with no facts on the presence of the Rush Limbaugh show. The famous clip that Rush used to play. And we're talking about an extrapolation without any type of facts. That's what they're able to do. Like I said, they're very fine people, right? Juicy Smollett, George Floyd, Bubba Watson's fake noose in his NASCAR hanger.
Right. Yep.
All of these things, they're able to string them together to blame Trump, to blame Make America Great Again, to blame whoever, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Laura Ingraham, whoever the hell it is, right? It's what they do because they can't look at themselves. I walked you through earlier in this show how the party boss of the Democrat Party refused to look in the mirror. They still think Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton are looking back at them. They are not. AOC, Mamdani, Bernie, Pocahontas, That's who's looking back at them. And Rahm Emanuel and some of these smart chieftains may try to orchestrate another maneuver here in 2028, and they probably will, to keep their base from getting what they want, because they know if the Democrat Party base, which you saw in action shooting up that Catholic school in Minneapolis, that's their base. The people that broke Rand Paul's ribs, the people that shot Steve Scalise,
right.
Okay? The people that were running around Brett Kavanaugh's neighborhood with an AR-15, that's their base. If they let them vote, they're going to lose 45 states.
So
can't let them choose the nominee, brother.
Yeah. Well, let me.
They have a way bigger problem than we do. Our biggest problem is, Paul Ryan sitting on the board of Fox News and, Foghorn Leghorn, Mitch McConnell not retiring fast enough. I mean, they have a bigger problem.
Yeah. Well,
because
so that brings me to the question about New York City. You mentioned Mondami. First of all, it looks like he's got a pretty good chance. It looks like he's the front runner. And what happens if he does become mayor of that city? And is that going to be communism in a fishbowl that we can watch, or is that going to affect the entire country? How's that going to play out?
Sure, you're going to see flight of not just voters and people, but business. It's been going on since COVID. You're going to see Elise Stefanik win the governor's race, and you're probably going to see the National Guard take over all 5 boroughs. And Mamdani could sit and he could sit and try to bench press 25 pounds and watch Rachel Maddow, in his office and worry about whether or not Bongino is going to come in there and slap cuffs on him.
Yeah. Well, AJ, you always bring an entertaining conversation. I really appreciate it. And the knowledge that you have is amazing. We really appreciate you being on the show today. But I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your books and give yourself a quick plug here.
Well, guys, look, go to Amazon. You can get Volume 1, The Woking Dead, Volume 2, The White Privilege album. Volume 3 will be out next year. Go to Amazon and get the best prices. I think there's audiobooks of both. We're trying to help Bezos pay off that wedding. So you got to go to Amazon and spend some money at Amazon. But you'll have fun, right? Because, look, I was raised on Howard Stern before he lost his mind and Rush Limbaugh. I share a birthday with both men. My job, I think, is to use irreverent humor to illustrate truth. That was Rush's motto. That was Andrew Breitbart's motto, who was a mentor of mine. But look, you got to have a little fun. And if you've got a crazy blue-haired niece or nephew that just went off to college, maybe get them a couple copies of this book, maybe with some jokes and some humor, sometimes gallows humor. You can convert them back to sanity.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a nice thought. I do have both books, and I want to tell you that they're fantastic, so I urge everybody to get your hands on these books. AJ, thanks so much for being on the show, and thank you for watching on Rumble, YouTube, our networks like Spreely and some of our other networks and all our podcast platforms. We appreciate you watching the show. And my name is Dan Woss, and just remember, the Second Amendment is not a privilege. It's your right.